The lady says it's recording. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Snyder. Thank you for watching on YouTube and listening on Apple Podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, subscribe, and review. It helps. And if you like my wife and I being crazy and exhausting, go to the Exhausting Snyders on TikTok. All right. I'm here with my co-host and wife. She is the former editor-in-chief of Atlas Obscura, co-founder of Odd Salon San Francisco. She's a death positive advocate, writer, and she's currently the founder of Posy Filled Pockets. And she's also working on a script about her father's band called Absalom. Thank you for being here, Rachel.
Always. Always a pleasure.
And speaking of pleasure, we're going to talk about pleasure. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff with our guest. He is a musician, an actor, and dear friend, Brian Buckley. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys. It's wonderful. As I was telling you right before we press record, it's wonderful to finally meet you, Rachel, even if it's digitally. And it's always a pleasure, Brian. I admire you and think you're wonderful. So it's just an honor to be a part of anything you're a part of.
Igualmente.
Yeah, listen to that Spanish. There we go.
Yeah. So I got to talk about something. I was in a meeting today, and the meeting consisted of entirely of acronyms. So the whole thing was like, so we're going to talk about the BWCA. And then we got to move on to the RCI. And does anybody have an HRP? And it literally drained my soul. I mean, to the point I didn't know what to do. I felt dead. I felt really emotionally dead inside. And I really think acronyms are the death of language.
Right. I mean, if you're asking me to expound on that, I entirely agree. I think it's an interesting way to abbreviate. Essentially it's to save time, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. The principle of it is to save time. But I agree. It's just gonna dumb down language, and everything's gonna become an abbreviation, and we're gonna stop communicating, which we sort of kind of already are, right? Like we communicate in person less and less. So it's an interesting path that we're already heading down. But I love that you opened this podcast with this question, because I was literally talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. We were discussing feeling old past a particular point where you don't recognize the acronym. So you're like, okay, well, I know what LOL is, right? That makes a lot of sense. But then when you get like the 7 or 8 one, you realize that I must be over 40. I have no clue what any of this means.
I had to ask Rachel. I was like, I ask her all the time. I'm like, what does this mean? Like, right. And she explains it to me, because she's fresh.
I'm web savvy.
Yeah,
you're privy to the modern times.
It was funny. My father, when he got a cell phone, that was an interesting day. He learned what LOL, right, and he started making up his own. And I'm like, okay, you can't just do that. You can't just take a sentence and make it into acronyms and expect me to know what you're talking about.
But you have to admire that. I mean, that's kind of brilliant. I mean, he's almost doing it facetiously, which is brilliant.
I wasn't, with him, it was always, iffy. It wasn't sure if it was a joke or if he was just really being weird, or I think it was a joke, but he'd send me these texts. They're just like AFCRTL. I'm like, what does this mean? This
amazing. I immediately want to meet him.
Well, he's dead, unfortunately.
and there, hold on, let me insert the shoe into my mouth. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible.
No, that's my mean joke that I do. And people, no, I mean, he is dead, but.
Oh my goodness. But he was around long enough to get a cell phone and have this moment with you. So that's.
Oh yeah. He just passed away in 2017.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. To hear that. That's really tough. That's really, really tough. I just had a friend lose a parent, and very similar. The grieving process seems to be one of the most bizarre, I guess.
It's very, very different than losing friends and different different family members. It's because that's these two people are the first people you ever encountered.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you really have with them, even if it's a complicated one. I work as a funeral counselor, or I did until fairly recently. And then when families would, you never want to say like, oh, I'm so sorry about your mom, because maybe they
Right.
hated their mom. It's hard to say,
Right.
but it was
Right.
always complicated. So I would just kind of leave it at that. Like, it's always a very distinctive and unique grief to lose a parent,
Right.
regardless of your relationship. Was what was my kind of go-to thing. But yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah. I imagine. My wife and I this past year have been, so we don't have kids, but we do have dogs, or rather did have dogs. We had both dogs pass away within a few months of each other during the pandemic.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And our dogs were, for all intents and purposes, our children. And so we both lost a lot of humans, but man, there's something about losing a dog that you've had for 15 years that just, man, you don't, even though you know it's coming, it's inevitable, it's impending. When you rescue a dog, you understand that that's going to happen. You're going to outlive it. And yet when the moment arrives, it's just never ending grief. It's just, you're just like, this isn't, I thought I was supposed to be a little stronger than this, being, the more evolved species, or one would think, but apparently not. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but
well, I mean, dogs never piss you off, really, and
Right.
they're like the perfect friend. So it's not, the humans that you've got all these complicated feelings. With a dog, it's pretty straightforward. Just love.
Yeah, and it's constant source. It's all love and light. It has nothing. It has no other ulterior motive aside from perhaps food. And it's a wild thing, but I think we're also kind of grateful that it happened during the pandemic, because we were able to be with both of them at the time, as opposed to either me on the road or she or her shooting or whatever. We're constantly working. So
She's on the road shooting. She's doing road rage shooting.
No, I'm saying me on the road or her shooting.
Okay.
But maybe depends on the movie.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that kind of worked in our favors. We were able to actually be there with them, and
Be more present for it.
Yeah, which is wild. But I mean, you work in the industry, so I'm sure you're sort of used to talking about these very difficult subjects.
Oh yeah. It's kind of my, for the last, should we talk about it now, Brian Snyder? Should we go there?
Fine.
So
I also like that she called you by your full name. I just love that. That's wonderful.
I always do. And in this interview, it might be good because, keep you guys separated, but so after Brian did his interview with you, and it was, what was that, the second or no, it was in the first 5 or something, right, Brian?
I think it was in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, you were really early on and we're like, what, 68 or something crazy like that?
It's yeah, it's about there. It was Aaron was 65.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That first of all, that is amazing. That's incredible. And also that you got Aaron, which is also incredible. I only saw about half of it. I need to get through the other half, but awesome. I mean, I can't believe 65. Like,
yeah, and it's been a year since we had a conversation. It's
wow.
amazing how fast time slips away.
Yeah, indeed. It's terrifying and also astonishing all at once.
Well, so far this is very depressing.
So let's get upset a little bit
upset.
Because well, you were upset from the first video, and that's why I this is happening right now. This is the only reason I wanted to do this.
I wasn't upset. I was incredulous, I think is it better.
So we were talking about social media. And...
No, I'm going to tell the story. You're not telling.
All right.
Because you're going to, Okay. Because you're going to start doing semantics. Well, and that's not exactly what I said. And I watched it again today to make sure that I knew exactly what happened. So.
Well, this is wild. I can't wait to see where this is going.
So he comes in and he says, okay, I really want you to listen to this podcast because, I remember my friend Buckley, he's a great musician. And I talk about you. I mention you. We talk about you for a minute. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm going in with that preface, right? Like, okay, so they talked about me and it's got to be something, interesting enough for him to think I should see it. Although it's not like I wasn't going to watch it anyway. Like, oh God, okay, well, if I'm in it, I guess I'll check it out. But so I'm listening. And one of the first things that, that you guys start talking about is you had lost a friend to suicide recently. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. this is where it comes in. So I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. So you heard my intro, but I've been in the deaf industry for 10 years, either as a writer or giving workshops on things like suicide prevention and language of suicide and culture and how to, and I've been giving lectures and writing articles and I'll be working hands-on as a funeral counselor for 10 years. It's been my whole life. I'm a founding member of the Order of the Good Death. I'm in the deepest. So I'm like, okay, so this is where I get brought up because this is my wheelhouse.
Right.
And then you guys talked about that and it was interesting, but I didn't come up and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe they bring it up later and go back to it. And you did. And you said something, Brian Buckley, that something about vernacular, like what exactly, because Brian didn't really have words and you said, well, what can you say? What's the vernacular? And then I'm like, oh, I know, because that's something that I give workshops on and I talk about frequently is the language of how we don't use certain, or how we shouldn't use certain terms like committing suicide because it implies a crime and say someone successfully killed, they succeeded in killing themselves because it gives it a positive, just stuff like that.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, well, no. Okay, well, I'm listening. And then going back to it again, and you said something about how you had thought that you could have stopped. And again, we're getting right back into my work. This is, more stuff that I have a lot of insight on. No, It didn't really bring me up. And then he says, then you start talking about social media, and he says, yeah, my wife really, I don't like Facebook so much. She likes it. Facebook means a lot to her. That's so you guys talk for like an hour and a half, right? You talk about death, about suicide, about the vernacular of this stuff. You talk about other stuff too, like music. My father was a musician. I grew up around musicians and all kinds of stuff. We have some similar philosophy, you and I, about everybody having their own shit and kind of having empathy for that and kind of understanding that everybody's in their own experience. I'm like, I totally relate to this guy. I can see why I came up. Facebook means a lot to me. That's what I'm watching this to see. That's what you're so proud of.
What's interesting is you actually went back and watched the whole thing, and now you built this case against me. Yeah,
I mean, you built the case against yourself. It's on video. And the funny thing is that it's happened. Since then it's happened again. It's happened at least once, and I need to go back and rewatch.
Well, what I did was after every episode after that, all the way up through Kendall Landreth, TikTok star, I was saying, Facebook means a lot to my wife. I brought it up every time.
An inside joke, which is totally funny. But and if anything, like my wife uses Facebook for business, and she has a lot of. My wife, means a lot to me. What does that mean?
Like, well, it does, or it did before TikTok.
Well, if I can just jump in momentarily. I'm no one to presume to offer any, and I certainly don't want to sound politically correct here, but in defense of Brian Snyder, someone I've known for, a fairly long time on and off, as far as being, interacting, the guy just always means well. So I assumed when he said that to me, he just meant that you connect with friends, was what but I also completely see your wife's point of view, in which case, you're both right. And I now I sound like a senator, which I don't mean to do.
That was fair. I think that's fair. And, what he meant was I have talked at length about social media and how it has meant a lot to me, in the sense that I've been in very isolated situations.
Right.
And it's allowed me to stay connected to people. And it's also launched my writing career tremendously. I have a very large amount of my freelance work. And I mean, the bigger stuff all came from Facebook and like connecting with people in that kind of world. So that's what he meant. But that was the only thing that like you really should watch this. I mention you and I'm like, you mentioned that I'm like super into Facebook. That's, first of all, a little embarrassing. And I'm not even into them anymore. We totally broke up. I'm into TikTok now. But
so we have an exclusive
like you're having this conversation that's like built on my life's work. that I
Right.
would have insight into, but that's not important. What's important is my love affair with Facebook. And then recently he did another interview with an old friend, and they were talking about like 90s music or something. And wait, it was about the Metallica box set.
Oh yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
I was in a Slayer video for their box set.
Oh, wow.
I was an actress in it. So he's like, oh, my wife has that Metallica box set. And I don't. I've never even, I don't have that box set. I've never had that box set. So it's almost as if like he's reminded of me. I mean, it's not about me. The interview's not about me. Like I get it. It's not about Rachel, but like, don't even bring me up if you're going to just take something that
I mean, look, listen, you're 100% correct, but
it's just hilarious.
Invariably, multiple things can be true, right? And like, isn't he also just adorable when he does moments like that? Because you're like, you have all these things that you could grab, and you chose to grab the Facebook thing. Like, that's hilarious. That's part of his charm, no? Or is that just?
And so, did you not think of me during my life's work, but you did think of me because I stuck up for Facebook once while we were arguing about it, and then you remembered something about me in a metal band, but you probably eluded you. So you just threw that out that I had a box set once of Metallica that I didn't have.
You know what, Brian, never mind. She convinced me.
I'm sorry, what, Brian?
I said, never mind. She convinced me.
Well, first of all, I believe you did say you had a box set of Metallica because we talked about it looking like a trunk for equipment, right?
I said I'd seen it because I worked at Tower Records when it came out.
Oh, Tower Records. Oh,
and that is the second part, which is I couldn't afford it because I worked at Tower Records.
Oh.
How would I afford the box set?
Speaking of Tower Records, Brian's from Sacramento.
Oh, that's Tower Capital.
Yeah, that was the place to go, to listen to music and to buy music was Tower Records. Everybody went to Tower Records and just spent all day searching out new music. It's highly depressing that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it evolved, itself to death, but Tower was the jam. Did you work at Sunset?
No, I actually worked in Berkeley on Telegraph.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right.
But I mean, those were some amazing years of my life. I was at Tower for about 4 years, from like 19-ish to 23. Yeah, and it was awesome. I mean, it was so much fun, and I got to see so many shows, and I got all the music first. And Tower there's documentaries about it because it was its own little culture. Right. And everybody who worked there, I mean, I'm still in touch with most of the people I worked with, even though it's been 20 years. And there was a movie that came out in the 90s called Empire Records.
Empire Records, of course.
That was very realistic. That was very
Empire
much
Records was, I mean, I was the young kid. I was the young, not stealing, but I was the young kid who was like trying to hang out with them all.
Yeah, we had those kids, and then there was people having sex in the count out room, and there was chaos, and it was fun. It was a really fun job. I really enjoyed.
That's amazing. So which character were you from Empire Records?
The sassy girl. What was her name?
It was played by Renee Zellweger, no?
Yeah, I think so. Despite doing my very best Gwen Stefani impression at the time, which should date me exactly to when that was. I was really rowdy kind of punk rock girl.
Awesome.
But in swing dresses and
awesome.
40s hair. But I was a menace on the entire avenue. I would terrorize the avenue on a frequent basis.
That's amazing. Yeah, Tower Records is a special place in my heart. It's kind of like the very last time you walk in a Blockbuster Video, you're like, oh, this is gone now. Like there won't be this anymore ever. And as far as the distribution of art, the physicalness of it is gone. So it becomes archaic. It just becomes this thing that's antiquated that you look back on retroactively and just adore. You're like, oh, remember when you'd open the CD and you read the lyrics, like, fuck, that's gone. That'll never exist again.
Remember that
when working on Telegraph, we had all the people coming in, street people and unusual characters, and there was always something happening. There was a couple riots on Telegraph during my time there. That was exciting. And being there when the Beastie Boys Intergalactic came out, like being a part of that. That was so awesome. The album was awesome, and everyone was into the store, so we weren't fighting over what we were playing for once. Just the Fuji first album Score came out when I was there, and just these epic albums that I got to hear before anyone else, be part of, and then the artwork. I don't know if you ever noticed the foam artwork that they had in all the towers. They had a very specific foam layered kind of, they were doing on drawings.
Sounds familiar.
And there's a whole documentary about that. And I ended up with one of them that sadly fell apart, but it was a giant circular thing of Elvis. And Elvis was
awesome.
Made out of McDonald's wrappers and M&M wrappers and stuff like that. Like he was collaged together. And then there was a ring of pills around it, like real pills glued onto it. And then a ring of M&Ms, and then a ring of Tums. Whoa. And then the background was all like candy wrapper. It was amazing.
That's amazing. That's incredible. That's how culturally specific. That's
very.
That's great.
Why isn't that in our bedroom?
Because it fell apart. I mean, it was made out of candy and foam. It's in 20 years, it did not last long.
Some people are made out of that.
I actually ended up giving it to Eric, to Big Eric, and then I don't know what happened to it after that. He probably, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, speaking of music,
yeah,
I'd like you to weigh in on something, Brian Buckley.
Please.
So we have a thing about Hallelujah, the song.
Oh God, here we go.
So she loves the.
We basically
Leonard
just
Cohen.
Invited you to do marriage counseling, is what.
I just want his opinion. That's all. That's all I want.
Yeah, he doesn't have a scorecard behind him. I promise.
Not at all. Yeah.
See, I can't even write on one, so it doesn't matter. So there's the Leonard Cohen version,
right?
And then there's the Jeff Buckley version. Then there's the John Cale version.
Don't start throwing in extra versions, like we're not talking about the first two, because you're just trying to add it with other ones when really down to those two first ones.
And then it's Rufus Wainwright.
Right.
Okay. So now I love Leonard Cohen. I think he's brilliant as a writer. Right. And I enjoy his version of Hallelujah. Right. However, with that said, I really like the Jeff Buckley version.
Right.
Now, Rachel thinks that's sacrilege.
No, I know
the Jeff Buckley
you can
version.
like it, but to say it's better than Leonard Cohen's that's hard to take from you.
I mean, if you're asking me to weigh in, I think
yes, Brian Buckley, which version?
I mean, it's a matter of opinion, right? But
right, it's totally subjective. Agreed.
Jeff Buckley, Brian Buckley.
So here's what I think. Again, I'm going to sound like the governor of the state, but I believe that the Leonard Cohen version, because he's the songwriter, there's a heartache to his version that is totally undeniable and completely unique. There's something that happens in that real low tonal execution of his vocal that sounds like Johnny Cash's version of Trent Reznor's
Hurt.
Yeah. Is it Dirt or Hurt? I can't remember.
It's Hurt.
That when you listen to it, you even Trent Reznor has said, like, that's his song now. Like, I may have wrote it, but something happens when he sings it in that particular fashion. So I think that his version is excruciatingly beautiful. That said, I think one of the most beautifully recorded songs in the history of recorded music is the Jeff Buckley version. There's the way that they mixed it, the way that his voice.
Look at him gloating. Look at him gloating right now. He thinks he's just won something. See that?
No, he
Please continue. Please.
Oh, but his he has this uncanny ability to sing like an angel, and he has a very feminine energy when he sings. It's extraordinary to watch. So it's really funny because I always think of them as A-B on the same level. Like you get Leonard Cohen's version is very much this masculine, like the death of machismo or something. And then you've got Jeff Buckley's version, which is just sounds like an angel being crucified. It just sounds like love itself is being put into a coffin. So you have these two very opposing energies to one song. One song. And that's the beauty of music, is that it's interpreted in a variety of ways. I mean, listen to Rufus Wainwright's version. Rufus Wainwright's version is out of this world. I mean, he's also an extraordinary singer, but it's also a beautiful version. But for me, I guess if there was a gun to my head, if there was a Snyder gun to my head, I'm
choose. You have to choose.
I'm so sorry, Rachel. I'd probably have to go with Jeff on this one. But
well, I think that's a very fair and diplomatic answer. Well, and also, I'm not a purist. Like Sinead O'Connor's "Nothing Compares to You." That was Prince's song, and she took it from him. Period.
That version is otherworldly.
Yeah. And my father was mainly a vocalist, and he stole some songs. He had songs that I thought he wrote until after he died.
Oh, wow.
I found out he didn't, because not only were they kind of obscure, but also he had changed them so much in very subtle ways that they became his. And someone, when I was interviewing for the script I'm writing, said that about him. They said, once mixing a song, it was his song. And he had a very feminine energy when he sang as well. And so you'd think, but Leonard Cohen, it's really about what you were saying, the feeling, like he wrote it. And so it's his. And so it emotes something that I connect with. And Buckley's is beautiful. It is, but I prefer Leonard's because of the power behind it, I think.
Yeah, there's a depth of frightening emotion to his version that is, but also I think that's why it sort of loses its re-listenability factor, right? Because maybe. it's so dark, it's so in a tunnel of hurt, and Jeff's almost has a like, I don't know how to explain it. It almost sounds hopeful. And I don't know.
Well, I dwell in the tunnel a lot, so that that tunnel quite a bit. So that makes sense.
Right. So I guess did I help? Did I hurt?
All right, Snyder, you won this one.
Angel being crucified. Did you hear that, Rachel?
I did.
I got chills when he said that.
Ah,
I did like that.
I mean,
that's poetry.
Yeah, I think there's something special about that song in particular. I mean, I also think it's maybe one of the greatest songs ever written. I don't want to sound too over dramatic, but I really believe that. Like, it's one of those songs that you hear for the very first time and it converts you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can think of like 5 of his songs that I feel that way about, though. So he's almost.
I mean,
good, really.
If you guys haven't had an opportunity to, when we get off this beautiful conversation, listen to Martha Wainwright sing, Rufus's sister, sing "The Traitor." You'll just want to cry your eyes out. It's stunning in a way that I can't quite describe. And I had never heard the song prior to her singing it. And so then I went down the rabbit hole and listened to a bunch of different versions, but her version just is, it's just a dagger into the heart. It's really extraordinary. So "The Traitor" by Martha Wainwright. In fact, if you go on YouTube, it's part of his documentary, "I'm Your Man." I don't know. Have you guys watched that one?
I have not seen that, but I know Rufus did Chelsea Hotel, and that's in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome, man. It's just wonderful. I highly recommend. Do yourself a favor and check it out, because it's a musical buffet of wonderfulness.
Thank you. We will do that.
Yeah, of course.
So let's talk about buffets. Rachel used to work at a Sizzler.
It was short-lived, but I did.
Hey, listen, when I was at Cal Arts on summers, I would do theater back in Sacramento while also working at Denny's.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
It was a phenomenal experience of watching humans, and also you're like 2 steps at any given shift in the moment of the shift away from ending your life, because it's just so difficult. So it's both things, but
what was the craziest thing you experienced while working at Denny's?
At Denny's? Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Where to begin? Brian Snyder, where to begin? That's the question. The question is where to begin, because on a level of 1 to crazy, you were always at crazy in that place, because I was usually working, because I was rehearsing and doing theater during the daytime, or like afternoons. I was into nights. I would start work at like 11 and I would go into the morning. So it would be those like swing shifts where you get like the real.
You got everybody who was trying to sober up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the kids that have come in to drink coffee all night long. And
yeah, essentially. In fact, I guess the best story that I have from there, it's not a long one, so I won't keep you guys too long here for it, but there was such a thing as what was it called? Lumberjack Slam, I think is what it was called. But essentially what it was it was enough food to feed a lumberjack, right? Like you had ham and you had bacon and you had eggs and hash browns and pancakes and waffles. Like it was the whole.
And a cardiac arrest.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It was wild. And so one day a family had come in. No one was really there, but a family came in with 2 kids and the parents, very nice people. And the kid was really, really sweet. And he said, I can eat everything. I love Denny's. I can this and that. And I said, well, look, there's this special that if you eat all of the lumberjack slam, you get it for free. This kid's like 9 years old. He's like, I can do that. And I was like, all right, man, all you. Let's watch. So I started bringing out the plates.
In the movie The Great Outdoors with John Candy, he has to like eat an entire steak and then his meal is free.
Yeah.
As a mother, I think I already know what's coming.
Yeah. So I start bringing him plate after plate, and he's eating the ham and the bacon and the eggs and the pancakes and the hash browns and the soup that they brought with. I mean, it was one plate after another, and sure as shit, this kid was true to his word. He was putting away this food like it was his job. And then we got to the end, and at the very end, you have to like eat. I can't remember what the dessert was, like apple pie or something, but you had to finish it in order to get it for free. Mind you, at that time, like the entire lumberjack slam was probably $7.99. I mean, it wasn't like gonna break the bank, right? But this kid was determined. He was absolutely phenomenally determined to finish this. And so I bring the dessert by, and I start to kind of sense the gag reflex kick in to him. And I'm just kind of noticing, and it's peripheral at this point. I'm not going to like say anything to the parents because I imagine it's on their radar as well.
Or they're new and they don't know. Because
could be.
My whole thought of this is, where is his parent or his parents? Because this is
exactly. You just never know. So he starts taking one bite after another, and then about halfway into that dessert, the gag reflex goes in a way that I've never quite seen anyone. It was like the Great Barfarama and Stand By Me, except it was the dry gag for like a solid minute before the vomiting began.
I'm assuming it was projectile as well. I'm sure.
I can't remember. I think I blocked it out. It was traumatic, so I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember the sound more than anything. The sound was just haunting. And,
sonic vomit.
And I remember the mother saying, the dad sort of, really being kind and like cleaning it up. And I remember the mom turning to me and looking at me, asking for the check and saying, "You did this." And that was my memory. That was one of the best memories I had of working at Denny's at 19 years old.
Is
That's
making
hilarious.
a child barf.
But she let it happen. She should have known better. I don't. It's a rare occurrence that I don't know my child's gonna vomit with a few seconds at least. Just like, oh, okay, everybody stand back.
Right.
Okay.
What I don't understand is that if there was over a minute of gagging, why didn't somebody say, "Hey, let's go to the bathroom. You're gonna barf"?
Well, I think they assumed that he was going to be okay. Maybe a minute was, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it felt like a minute. It felt like a long time, but it was like a constant, and then it just, then it just went. So it was. I remember my coworker at the time turning to me and going, he'd been one of those like lifers at Denny's, like he'd just worked there for forever. And he turned to me and he was like, that was a moment for the books. And I was like, oh God, if you've been here 30 years and that was a moment for the books, did I do this to this child?
You're like, I can make everybody barf if that's what you want.
Right. Right. It could be a vocation at this point.
Jesus. All right. Well, I don't know how to transition into your new album from that.
Oh, can I just say, Brian, that I was checking out your music online the other day, and Hummingbird was the first one I came across.
Thank you.
Oh, what an amazing song. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I liked other ones too, but that one really, really I enjoyed.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That song kind of means a lot to me. So I mean, they all do, right? But
right, but that one I thought was special.
Yeah. So thank you for taking a listen, taking a gander to it. And I appreciate you connecting to it. Yeah,
well, and Brian said in the last time you have a beautiful voice. I really I wasn't sure what genre you were. So after listening to that one and then kind of going down the line, I was really impressed and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, hey, that's an honor. I think that's maybe the highest compliment is you're not sure what genre to place it. That to me, there's nothing greater than to hear that, because it always strikes me as a little bizarre when someone says, well, who do you sound like? And you're like, well, what? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't be able to.
You're gonna have to decide that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like walking.
I could throw you in a category if I wanted to, if I had to, but I prefer not to, because you were kind of, I like that.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And I'm happy to have, been able to work on music during the pandemic was a huge gift for me, because I think collectively, societally speaking, I think we were all kind of starting to kind of lose it a little. So being able to therapeutically create was life-saving.
Yeah, I feel like those of us who have creative endeavors lucked out with that, because it kind of gave an opportunity to, I didn't get to stay home. I was working overtime. So
so did you work all the way through? I guess my question is, were you around people all the way through?
Oh yeah. Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I worked through the pandemic. I worked through the pandemic until technically till this June, till this last well, in June, where it was kind of a combination of I left the mortuary due to not new management that I was not stoked on, and also compassion fatigue. I was getting really, really angry at people and getting really overwhelmed with all the politics around everything, and being told that the things that I was seeing happening were not happening, and that all of the weird false information, and I could and seeing everything up close, and having those kind of private transmissions from FEMA and from the OES, and just having more information than the average person in general.
Right.
That is not something I could share or use in any sort of convincing argument. Was really frustrating, because the funeral industry is very private and secretive, no matter what it's about.
Of course.
I had all this information that was, was killing me, because in nature, I'm a journalist and a writer, so I'm just like, I have the story, but it's the secret. So stupid if HIPAA. But yeah, it was very frustrating. It was very stressful. Obviously, coming, being the only one in the house who was leaving and coming back, and being exposed constantly, and dealing with the anger of families not being able to do what they wanted to do. I mean, it's just everything was just hard.
That was my first thought as you were talking just now. Is like, having to be the intermediary when you're dealing with death and an unprecedented global pandemic must not be an enjoyable time. Like, that must be really fucking hard.
It changed my job considerably. Yeah, it was a whole different animal before that. And I remember when the word first got that it was here, and we got our first person in, and they weren't counted. Several weren't in the beginning, because it was too early and they didn't have tests, but we were pretty sure, because of the circumstances, that it was our first COVID case. And my coworker and I just kind of looked at each other and like, buckle up, because then they brought a FEMA trailer cooler and parked it in the parking lot.
Wow.
It showed up one day, and then then the cemetery district called and was talking about buying 4 acres for temporary internment. And then they started doing temporary internment in New York on the island. And I said out loud, like, this is not what I signed up for. And then my boss was like, pretty sure it is exactly what you signed up for.
Right.
I said, well, and she's like, remember on your second week when you asked me all excited, what happens if there's a plane crash and there's too many bodies, and what do we do with them? And you had all these questions about what happens if there's a mass casualty. Well, you're about to find out. And it's like,
right.
So clearly I did know what I was signing up for. I just didn't expect it to happen at all. Not like this, And we lucked out. Our area was very, very fortunate in having low numbers simply because we're rural, but
Right.
that was not the case.
What a absolutely mind-boggling experience. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine.
It was very surreal. Yeah. And then just the thought of like, my job is going to change from bringing people coffee and sitting with them and doing paperwork to possibly getting on the Kubota and digging, temporary internment graves. Like this is changing everything. And I never had to wear PPE at my job because I didn't have a huge amount of contact with the bodies, some, but me having to be in full PPE all the time and to actually go do removals. Yeah, it was weird. And then at the same time, like I said, the community lying about what's happening and being misled and not understanding. That was the main thing, is like not understanding how things work. So having these theories about what was happening that if they'd known how things always worked, like with death certificates or with, how things are coded, or it wouldn't be some big, mystery. They would understand why it was being done the way it was done. But at that point, no one to listen either. So, I had one guy tell me when I was trying to explain how death certificates are coded so that people were not being counted as COVID cases if they got in a car accident and died, but happened to be positive. Like I was explaining how that's not possible. And also how doctors are not the end person to sign off on anything. So it's not like doctors can falsify anything. It goes through several different channels, including me as like a gatekeeper. And I went to this big, I took all this time to very gently and explain how it works. And his response was, just because you rubber stamp death certificates all day doesn't make you an expert. And that's when I just stopped trying, because first of all, it is not 1842. We do not rubber stamp anything. It's called a computer.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it means. I have a piece of paper on the wall that says I am. I was trained by this. No, I'm pretty sure I am. I mean, not an expert maybe, but certainly a educated person on the subject.
Yeah. So, I deal with it every day. So yeah.
So just the complete willful ignorance and inability for people to acknowledge what was happening. And I'm sure it's fear-based. So I try to keep that in mind and be, empathetic to that. Like it's fear-based. They're scared, so they don't want to admit it. And I get it. And I see horrible things all day long, every day. So it's not fair for me to judge their level of, tolerance or whatever. But yeah, by the end, I was getting mad. I was getting angry and mean about it, and not feeling.
I mean, who could blame you?
And kind of, I got kicked off Facebook for like 10 days for writing "get COVID, get COVID, get COVID, get COVID."
Oh my God.
I was getting angry, and coming home and having to, and stressing out my family and stressing out my child, who I still have to sleep with because I got sick last year, and it wasn't COVID, but I had to be quarantined until the tests were done, and he thought I was going to die, and so I still have to sleep with him. I mean, I didn't
my God.
So he was tying himself to my leg with my, letting me go to the bathroom. He wouldn't sleep because he had to keep an eye on me, like Brian, stressing Brian out too. Cause I was exposed constantly. Families would come in and then I'd say, "I'm so sorry you weren't able to be with your loved one, while they were passing." Like, "Oh no, they let us in, the hospital let us in the room." And oh, really? Well, how nice for you. Why aren't we doing this over there?
Right.
Because it's very difficult to tell families, especially older people, that they have to, do everything internet. They can't do that.
Of course.
So we're letting them come in, and then they're doing that. They're telling me that, and then they're not wearing masks. And then they're calling me 3 days later and going, "Yeah, I can't come in for the death certificates because we all have COVID." I'm like, fantastic.
Oh my God. That's wild. That is wild. I mean,
and just the streets being empty, the streets being empty and everyone being gone except for us. And it's already kind of ghoulish, and or we feel like ghosts and kind of invisible anyway.
Yeah.
And that made it super weird when everyone's gone but us.
I'm telling you, I mean, what you guys do, what health workers do, first responders, things like that. I mean, what would we have done without you guys? I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't. I mean, how would anyone have gotten through any sort of crisis? I just don't. I can't fathom.
Well, we do things that people don't like to think about. So, this has been a test for people to be like, well, now guess what? Now you have to think about it, because if one of us in the mortuary gets sick and we get any of it's a 5 to 7 person crew. That's it. If we all get sick, who's gonna pick up the bodies?
Yeah.
Then what? Then what happens? Like that's something that no one ever thinks about or wants to, but we do, and we know what happens if that happens. So, but
yeah, it's a really interesting thing. This whole time has been, as Brian and I spoke about last time we talked, but it's been really interesting to this is like the truest test of someone's empathy. It's the truest test. Like, how intensely can you, as emphatically as you can, be empathetic? Because everybody is freaked out. Everyone's got their own shit going on, and it's monumental, and it's terrifying, and it's earth-shattering, and everyone's feels like theirs is more intense than somebody else's. And in actuality, everybody's is as intense as everybody's. It's just a matter of trying to use your empathy. And certainly with first responders or healthcare workers, certainly in your industry, when you look at it like that, it's very easy to use your empathy. It's much harder to use your empathy for people at the grocery store when you're in line and somebody's being rude or whatever. That's real. That's when it's really hard. But with people that are working in the health industry or the death industry, it's you just thank your lucky stars that people are willing to do that. Because I can be, in all transparency, I don't know if I could have at the beginning of this thing. We were all terrified. Everybody was out of their minds in fear.
Funeral workers walked in the beginning. There was some that just were like, nope, this is not right. I'm not, don't get paid enough for this, and just absolutely dipped out immediately. And I considered it. I did.
Right.
Just because I didn't want to endanger my family, but I also felt a really strong, ethical obligation to stay at my post, Right. So that was a struggle.
That's amazing.
But that's like you were saying, everybody has their own thing, and there's all these side issues that have come from COVID, like this, the workers learning that they don't have to go to work for $5 an hour, like just all these other societal things that are coming out of this, that's going to change the landscape dramatically. And I'm really interested to see where it's going to go. Probably nowhere good at first, but can't change anything unless you set it on fire first.
Right, apparently.
Speaking of setting things on fire, let's hear the name of this album.
It's called the record I just released. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
It's called Brian's Still Blind.
Right.
He actually named one called, you have one called Hysterical Blindness.
Yes, an album called Hysterical Blindness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a joke I was playing off of, right?
Right. Yeah, which I think you had titled or put in the title of the last one we had done, which I thought was pretty interesting. But this particular record is a little interesting in the trajectory of our band, because it was just me. It's just a solo record called Color. And it's with our longtime producer, Johannes Racina. He and I really spending time together safely and then remotely trying to finish it. And it was nauseating to even decide to do it, because you almost feel like you're cheating on your wife or something. I don't know.
Well, weren't you? I mean, technically you were masturbating because you're by yourself.
And here we are back where we weren't going to go.
Well, he wasn't masturbating in play.
But see, there you go. See, Rachel, now that's his charm working. It's wonders.
Oh, what he gets away with is very impressive. What he gets away with
I'm just a poor blind man.
Oh, good Lord.
Not knowing the way through the world.
No, I consider Brian Snyder much more. His charm is just off the charts. So anyway, no. To get back to it, yes, it would be considered lone enjoyment, I suppose. But also, it's a really scary thing because I've been with the band for 15 years now, so it was a really scary thing to do, and also wonderful. It's like jumping out of a plane or something. It's the last thing you want to do, but then after you do it, you're thrilled you did. And a lot of these songs live a world away from the safety blanket that is my relationship with the guys in the band. So a lot of the music has a more modern approach to, sonically speaking, to crafting these songs, and a lot of these songs just kind of didn't work with the band, right? So, but it served as my church, as my own little centerpiece of spirituality in the midst of the madness. So I'm terribly grateful for it. and I'm so happy that it's out now and that people can hopefully, I hope, connect to it. And it's been a crazy experience to do this, when I can't even play live. That's also another, variable that is weird. I mean, technically speaking, I suppose I could now. A lot of places are opening, a lot of clubs and theaters are opening back up, festivals are opening back up, but it just feels weird to me. Like I still feel apprehensive about it. So it's even doubly more strange that we're releasing this thing, or I'm releasing this thing that it goes out into the universe, untethered to me playing it live or doing anything of that sort. So that was sort of a very, very long-winded question from Brian, simply asking what is the name of the record, but there you go.
Well, thank you. Well, let's hear one of the songs from Colors.
Okay. And just, sorry, I hate to be this guy, but it's just Color, just no plural.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. It's just one of those things. Because the I don't know if you remember that very great 80s film with Robert Duvall and Sean Penn, cop movie called Colors.
Right.
Right.
One of Don Cheadle's first roles there, Cal Arts alumni. Okay, so this song is called My Will. And since mortality was a really, in the forefront of everyone's mind all the time, it kind of always is in my brain, just at any given moment. And so, and it's the one thing, aside from love, I think that we're all going to collectively experience, which is so strange that we don't talk about it really all that often. Like it's this, topic that really people are terrified about speaking on. Because unlike love, there's just all these question marks. It's this beautiful mystery that can be looked at either, in devastating terms or in a beautiful transition. I mean, you can look at it in a variety of ways, but people just don't want to look at it at all. So
My business cards say death, everybody's doing it.
Yeah, okay. See, now that's a much more interesting tagline. But yeah, so that's a lot of what this song is. Randomly, the first time I played this tune was at Dustin's place, his wine place. Covell.
Was that the one that was on? Wait a minute. Where is it?
It's in Silver Lake or near Silver Lake.
Oh, okay.
I remember it's on Sunset or Hollywood.
Isn't that where Aaron? Who worked there? Somebody I knew worked there.
Well, Aaron and his lady put together like an open mic thing that they would do, and songwriters would bring new songs in.
Oh,
so the first time they ever did it, they were kind enough to invite me, and so I came, and I had been working on this tune. And the night before, I hadn't finished it, but I was really angry, and it was just one of those scenarios where you're angry at the guitar and you're angry at yourself, and you're pretty much convinced that everything sucks and you're terrible, and why would you even do any of it? You're just one of those moments where everything is awful. Mm-hmm. And then the lights went out in my home, all the power went out, and I was forced to pick the guitar back up. And so I lit a couple of candles and ended up finishing the song. So were it not for the lights going out, what a metaphor. If the lights hadn't gone out, I wouldn't have finished the song. So here it goes. Here, I'll pull the camera down so it looks like I'm doing something here. Forgive the sound quality. I was trying to work with my gear here to try to see if I could get a nicer thing, nicer quality, but it wasn't quite working the way I wanted it to. So anyway, I'll shut up and play. Have you ever wondered when it all might end? Will we know it when the ending begins. Or will the stars above go distant, and will they dim? Will the bubbles burst and the singers stop singing? They'll never break my spirit, no, they'll never break my will. Underneath the surface where everything stands still, I have traveled to the edges with a truth so sharp it kills, it kills. Oh, I wonder, will it ever begin again? And will I have a choice in the matter this time? Yeah. Or can I take the lessons I have learned there? Or are they just too much burden to bear? They'll never break my spirit, no, they'll never break my will. Underneath the surface where everything stands still, I have traveled to the edges with a truth so sharp it kills, it kills. Like it or not, I know I've got to keep running. I'm burning up the engine. Like it or not, I know I've got to turn it up as loud as it will go until I scream. Will never break my spirit, no, they'll never break my will. And underneath the surface where everything stands still, I have traveled to the edges with a love so sharp it kills. Believe it or not, baby, oh, I think I've had my fill. Not much left in our pockets, just $100 bill. So, trust me when I tell you they will never break my will. They'll never break my will. Yeah, never break my will.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
It made me think, so Rachel and I both received the vaccine booster, right?
Oh, awesome.
And so I had a reaction to it. It was actually the symptoms were more severe the third time than the first two.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was laying there in bed and I was like, I wonder what it's like when I'm going to die. Is it going to be like, I'm just going to be like feeling like this, even more blind, and deaf and just feeling something like this.
Jesus.
That's what made me think the first few lines.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, you can't help. I think it's inevitable, though, right? You can't help but conjure up what that moment's going to be. And it's wild. I don't know if you guys, this is a random thing, but I saw this interview once with Betty White, who's now like, 1,000 years old, bless her. And she was talking about in an interview about how she's still working well into her 90s. And the interview had asked her, so you're not afraid of death or anything like that? And she goes, no, actually, when I was a baby or when I was young, my mother told me when her sister died, my aunt died, everyone was so sad, and she smiled. And I said, why are you smiling, Mom? And Betty White's mom turned to her and said, because now my sister gets to know the secret, the great secret. Mm. And Betty White was like, oh my God, it's amazing. So for the rest of her life, she just always associated death with learning the great secret, this mystery that will be finally solved about love and life and the purpose of us, and this extraordinary approach to death. And the interviewer said at the very end, well, that's amazing. And Betty White said, as I get older and older, I get more and more interested in finding out what the secret is. And I thought that was a beautiful way to elevate a very sometimes morbid situation.
I think she's found the secret to eternal life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's got a bathtub somewhere in the house with.
I think you're right, man. I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, it's really amazing what that woman's done. I remember her being very much older when I watched her in Golden Girls when I was 9 or whatever, on like CBS or whatever, and here she is like, now I'm 40.
She was like 30.
Yeah.
What did you say to me the other day, Brian? Who gave you the Betty White vagina to talk to me that way? Or something?
Oh, I've said that before to you.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. Wait, Brian, she's saying this on sort of a live scenario. You're supposed to deny.
No, I said that. And it's going to be something that I will say often. Instead of saying like, where do you get the balls? I'm going to say, where do you get the Betty White vagina to say that to me?
Well, because you've heard Betty White's quote about male genitals and how she wouldn't want to be a man. I don't know when she said it, but I feel it was many, many decades ago, where she says, right. Why would I want to do that? They have all their soft bits outside. They're totally vulnerable. No, that's terrible. I would never want to be a man.
Yeah. My wife consistently tells me that it's ridiculous that people are called when men refer to other men as a pussy. She's like, it's the most ridiculous thing ever, because vaginas are the most flexible, incredible, amazing pieces of the body that can ever be made, and yet testicles are the most sensitive, most easily hurt area on the human body. She's like, it makes zero sense, and I agree.
Yeah, why do you have the balls to do something when that doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the rest of the Betty White thing is a vagina can take a good pounding.
Oh, she did. That was the rest of that quote.
Which is true, right?
Brian, did I see a video where you're doing stand-up again, or was that an older video?
No, I that was Friday, November 5th this year, 2021.
Amazing. And how did it feel being on stage?
I felt at home. I mean, it's been literally 20 years since I performed consistently. I mean, I've done I tried stand-up in 2004.
Right.
And that didn't go well. And then I did it again in 2017. And I was basically having a mental breakdown when I did that one. And the first time I was just terrified. And then the second time I was scared, but it still didn't go that well. But this time I felt at home. I felt at peace. I had fun.
Amazing.
It was, he did great. It was hilarious.
That does not shock me at all.
Yeah, thank you. And, so this was my third attempt, and I loved it. And I felt alive. I felt my hemorrhoids went away. It really, it opened up a lot for me, both in my anus and in my spirit.
I can emphatically say that's wonderful to hear. I'm thrilled about that in more ways than one, because anything in the rear end is, that's also a sensitive area. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that it posed no threat to you being on stage. And also, like, the stage is where you live, man. I hear you say that it's home to you is really beautiful, because that's how I met you, man. I met you, rocking that stage and being amazed at what you could do. So to hear that you're back up there in whatever medium is the way it should be.
Thank you.
The
Because
writing
it's
of the
funny
world.
that you mentioned that, because I was thinking about Edward II, which you were in.
Yeah.
And Aaron Shiver and I were talking about how, like, during rehearsal, when I was supposed to put the poker up Edward's ass,
Yeah.
um, I was
This is
trying
really
to find
Crockett
my
production.
action, and I said, I want to get off on it. And then Brian Stanton turned to Aaron Shiver and said, the Actors Studio with Brian Snyder. And yeah, that was a funny memory. I didn't know that was happening until later, but that was very funny.
That was a great show. That was a great show.
Yeah.
I enjoyed being a part of that. I mean, that was my first sort of real experience at CalArts, and it was awesome just to watch everybody and, get a lay of the land and, see how creative things could be and how welcoming everyone was to whatever the creative landscape decided to throw at. I mean, it didn't really feel like there was any judgment on it, which I had never really been a part of before. That was a really cool experience.
Do you remember when I fell off the audience balcony onto the stage below?
I do. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm if it was going to be brought up, I'm glad you did. And I remember just being mortified, but I also remember you handling it with so much grace.
Well, I thought I was going to die.
Right.
So I let go. I was just like, this is it.
Oof.
Because my grandfather fell to his death working on an oil refinery.
Really?
Yeah. And so I thought, my thought was, when I was falling, my life did, flash before my eyes. And my first thought was, this is it. This is how we all die, the Snyders. And I just kind of relaxed into it. And then,
this is how we all die. It's just the one person.
well, I mean, weird deaths, like
a lot of minor. I'm doing his genealogy right now, so I know probably more than he does about it. But a lot of miners cough in your family.
Wow, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But your grandfather. I mean, that's just a generation away. That's it's pretty major, man.
Yeah. So wow. I mean. But I just remember we were all tired. We were, trying to break down the set. And I just remember, like, they had those boxes for the audience, everybody had their individual box.
Yeah. The big square. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember like kind of moving, and I stepped back, and I was like, oh, there's nothing here. Oh. And my left foot went, and then I was like, this is the end. And then I think I landed on my hands. And I remember jumping back up and going, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Well, that's what I remember. I remember you just popping back up and being all right. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, had that been me, I would have been tears galore. I mean, how did he handle that so gracefully? And yet now to hear about it, retrospectively is much more interesting, because you handled it so calm. You were it was like, okay, well, let's keep going. I'm fine.
And then our director, Gabriella, she's like, you need to go home.
Wow. She said that. I don't remember that. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, she was like, you should, you should probably.
She was worried about it.
Yeah.
She was. So. Yeah, I bet, especially after that whole situation with Hugo, a few years back.
What happened?
With Hugo, remember, was it Hugo that fell? I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't Hugo. I can't remember.
Somebody, I remember something like that. Was that
somebody fell from in the mod theater? Somebody fell. I can't remember who it was now, because I wasn't there at the time. But it was like
that's right, and he had like broken bones and
something really severe. So I think that they were extra special cautious in the mod theater because of that experience, or at least that's what I had heard. Again, I wasn't there when it happened, so I can't remember exactly who it was, but I do remember thinking about that, because that came up during that during that moment. But Man, it's wild to think that you thought you were going to die. Jesus, that's
Well, I mean, I think it wasn't, it was like 13 feet or 12 feet or something like that. I mean, if I would have landed on my head, I would have died for sure.
That's a long way, man.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not bracing for it. You know, that's a long drop, man.
Yeah.
Wild.
So that album has already dropped, right?
It came out as of November 5th. And
that's the same day as I did stand up.
Oh, awesome. I was saying, there we go. See, we're giving each other a little good energy from afar.
Yeah, there we go.
So November 5th was when it was released, and it's available on all major digital streaming platforms. You can either stream it for free, well, not for free, for those monthly subscriptions that Amazon and Apple offer, or you can, actually pay for it, which it seems to be a rarity these days. And I don't want to sound like I'm bitching, but that it's just not something that people typically do all that often anymore. But I really don't care if people pay for it or if they just press play on it, as long as they press play. That's all I really care about.
Well, what you played was gorgeous. Your voice sounds great, man. It really,
thank you, man.
Yeah, it's clean and clear. It's beautiful. So play another one. Let's hear another one.
You got it. So this tune is I had this really wild dream that I had this really wild dream that this deep, great love of mine passed away, and I had to just manage, and I had to figure out, what I was going to do with something as simple as, my everyday or whatever. And the more I sort of meditated on that what would your world look like with that, with your great love gone, the more scared I got. So it seemed to be a good impetus to write. I think, I don't generally sit down to write when I'm really happy. It seems to attack me, in times of great grief or whatever, or fear or sadness or anxiety. And so this tune is no different, but we were able to play with sort of a very acoustic approach to the song, with also more of a modern vibe as far as the drums or percussion is concerned, and strings and such. So it's the second to last song on the record. It's called "I'll Return." But what's interesting is that right afterwards, about 20 seconds after the song ends, we tagged on, my grandfather was a very famous vaudevillian performer. And so there's actual recording of him in the 40s with a full orchestra in New York singing a song called "The Blossom Fell." And so we cut 20 seconds of that and put it through some special, wonderful, beautiful sonic effects. And you'll hear that right before the very last song on the record. So
you didn't mention that during our last conversation.
Yeah, it was kind of a thing I was working on at the time, trying to get a hold of that old 45 in order to capture the sound. We actually captured a little sound of me as a baby learning my last name at the beginning of the record. You'll hear me and my mom talking. She had a recorder, and back in 81 or whenever this was kind of a huge deal. And so she's teaching me my last name. It's pretty hilarious and adorable. And but anyway, it was important for me to put elements of sonic elements in my life that didn't necessarily revolve around the actual song. So anyway, when you get an opportunity to listen to it, those are a couple of cool little things that we added to make it a little more singularly defined, a little more personal. Okay, so again, I'll shut up and play the tune. So this is called "I'll Return." All right, let's see if I can get correct on this. I just realized I don't think I've played this for anybody other than somebody here coming to the house, because it just, in terms of the pandemic. So if I fuck it up, it's entirely my fault.
Just like that lumberjack meal at Denny's was.
Yeah, it's like if you make my child barf or if you play the song wrong, it's Brian's fault.
You should write a song about that.
Oh, Brian's fault.
Right, yeah, Brian's
No, I just
fault,
meant
and
about
then
Denny's.
And then in parentheses it'll say lumberjack slam. All right. All right, here we go. So this tune's a kind of a quiet one, so I'll try to sing it a little quiet. Yeah, okay. Gone to the desert to lose my mind. You never know what you might find. I left the city to bury my dead, though they still want to be fed. Don't you cry, cry, cry for me. Don't you cry, cry. Don't you cry for me. I'm not sure when I will return, so please just wish me well. And the troubles that keep haunting my soul will all just go to hell, to hell. Oh well, it's overdue that I sink or swim. Go to hell, oh well. I lost my love when I could not find the key to everlasting life. Oh, and I begged her ghost, won't you take me back? A husband longing for his wife. Don't you cry, cry, cry for me. Don't you cry, cry, don't you cry for me. I'm not sure when I will return, so please just wish me well. And the troubles that keep haunting my soul will all just go to hell, go to hell. Oh well, it's overdue that I sink or swim. Go to hell, oh well, go to hell, oh well, so overdue that I sink or swim. Go to hell.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so
Gorgeous.
much. Thank you. I hope I didn't get too loud there. Sorry. I forget where I'm at sometimes, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you're at your house, Brian.
No, that was a very powerful ending. It was great. I really liked it, and I really like the switch up when you do the like I'm not sure when I'll be return.
Right.
the kind of like little tweak that you do on the guitar when you get to that part. I really enjoyed that too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It was really important to me on this record to be consistently like aware of where the melodies were, the counter melodies were for the vocals. That was something that was that I think when you're in a band setting, you not lose sight of, but it's not your main concern, primarily due to the fact that you're playing with such extraordinary musicians that your thoughts aren't on it. It's not your focus. And
right, you're in an ensemble and everybody has to be
right. Exactly. So with this, it was very much a centered piece. It was like we should at all times be double checking that those melodies are reinforced. And so and it's a confessional. It's this, every song I think is to one degree or another, but on this one it was like all the stuff that I sort of get away with, criminally speaking, with a band, because they're such incredible players that any of my shortcomings get sort of glossed over because I'm playing with such terrific craftsmen that on something like this, I can't hide. I gotta face. I almost said face the music. Let's not say that. So anyway, yeah.
No, but yeah, it's a whole different animal when you're doing solo stuff than when you're working with other musicians. Right. And yeah, you can kind of cover for each other and fudge things so that things kind of disappear in the bigger sound. But when you're on, it's exactly. Just you and your guitar, you're just kind of responsible for everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said it better than I did, and also, I mean, I maybe you can attest to, Brian, like when you're in an ensemble piece with a bunch of other actors, you feel like you there's an element of everybody, keeping time together. When you're doing stand up, it's you and a microphone. So you're like, oh fuck, this is entirely on me. If this goes to hell, I can't look at anyone else and think, maybe it was their off night. So I think that's one of the most exciting things for me to do this record was just as I was really scared. And I don't necessarily know if art can be worth consuming if it doesn't come from a place of being unnerved at its core, at its beginnings. So
yeah, and I remember you talking about that, that how you were concerned about it, when you I don't know how far into it you were that last November, because I think we spoke in October or November last year.
Yeah, I think you guys were telling me it's been a year, right? That's wild.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, it was. I mean, at that point, I think we were almost nearing completion. We spent like another few months mixing it and mastering it, that sort of thing. But and also, like, my producer and I played 98% of the instruments on the record. We're playing all the keys and bass and guitars and percussion, and we're sort of doing everything. It's just really two minds on it. Which was a new experience for me. I'd never done anything quite like that. So as an artist, it's you're so scared, and it's so adrenaline pumping. It's that bungee jump moment where they're like, okay, you're gonna go on the count of 3, and you're like, I'm ready, and I'm not at all ready. Like, I don't want to do this at all. So it's a beautiful conundrum to be in, because that's and really the whole higher purpose of the record, the framework for the record, is that we live in this like strictly binary moment, and trying to find the color, trying to find that in between that black and white is next to impossible, it seems, right now, which is the whole reason artists should exist and have since the dawn of its conception, is that there was this level of they're gonna make us feel things that we wouldn't be able to on our own, or something to that degree. And I think that's admirable to me, when art seems sort of superfluous in a moment where health workers should be considered gods. You know what I mean? Feels kind of like, why are we doing this? Well,
I think that artists are conduits. They're conduits of
right.
of things that they're higher attuned to, that, that they can translate it and put it back out to other people, so other people can relate to it as well.
Right.
And then that's the big challenge, right? To get something that's super personal, but that also can be relatable to a large amount of very different people.
I totally agree with you. Conduit's the perfect way to put it, because that's ultimately what we are. We're just vessels. You know, we feel something and it means something enough to us that we performatively speaking, we want to share it. And that in it itself is a sort of psychosis. Like, it's fucking
sure, being willing to take the criticism that comes with it, which is immense, but being egotistical enough to think that your voice is important.
Right.
Needs to be heard by everybody, and you're willing to take the abuse for it. And I used to always, if I worked with kind of greener, more green writers, especially if they wanted to do personal pieces and write about themselves, right. I would always tell them, you think about the subject that pops into your head and that makes you nauseous to think about writing it and have other people read it. That's it. That's the thing you're supposed to be writing. That's the one that makes you want to vomit.
Beautiful
lumberjack style.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, that's beautiful advice. I think that's the way to do it. I mean, I think that's, also why the CalArts experience was something special to me, because, it was a lot of that just constant, worry, like, and not that you should be constantly worried when you're creating, but I think that it should give you a level of fear to do it. And if you're doing that, then that means you're doing something that I think is important, whether you're singing about, you know what I mean, being happy or being sad is not the point. The point is that if it shakes your core, if your foundation feels like it's on mud, then that means you got to make something. You got to form that mud with your hands and turn it into something special. And I that it scares me to make music. It really does. So I think now it really doesn't matter to me how many people listen to it. I just hope one person gets something from it. I hope one person connects to it. That's all I really care about at the end of the day.
Right.
Well, I'm connecting to it, and I'm getting something from it. Immensely beautiful. And when you were talking about describing that song, my first thought was Luke Palter. And he lost his wife Nancy last year around this time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's awful.
Yeah, they've been together for like 60 something years.
Right.
And I thought about, I wonder, because, Rachel and I mean, it would be wonderful. I don't know how many years, we have, but, to have that 60 years, that's not many people get that at all.
Sure.
And then to lose it at the end, that's got to be intense.
And that's got to be hard.
Yeah. I mean, my parents have been together for almost 55 years. And I mean, I just did admire them to no end. The level of communication at that point almost has to be like Jedi-like.
Oh yeah. There's just eye movements and
there's eye movements is the exact thing. Yeah, maybe even like a chin shift and like, okay, all right, I get you. But I can't imagine I can't even begin to fathom what that experience would be like. I mean, I just celebrated my 10-year wedding anniversary with my wife.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we were reminiscing on the day of our wedding and thinking about it and discussing it and things. And it just, I mean, it went by in an instant, that 10 years of traveling and happiness and memories and sadness and losing people and friends and parties and fighting and making love. I mean, everything you can imagine with one person for a decade. And yet it felt like it was, like we just said, I do yesterday. So it's a bizarre thing to think, what if you lost that person? It makes you, I asked my dad once that, and he was like, well, I gave up smoking and I gave up drinking and I gave up eating to a certain extent, and I gave up gambling and I gave up all these things. If she goes, guess who's back? Guess he's going to jump back to all those things. Just because at that point, like why not enjoy it?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he was going to say, if she goes, I go, but it's
right.
If she goes,
he's like, I'm going to party.
I'm getting wasted.
Right. And how long you guys been married now? It's been
Well, we've been married since 2019.
I was gonna say 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Man, I tell you, I wish I could have been there for that, but pandemic and such.
I mean, we're
yeah,
still trying to think of another way.
The
Go
universe
ahead. You were
doesn't
going to say
want what
something.
we want. It's just the universe doesn't want what we want as far as weddings go.
Yeah.
Right.
We had the first, when we had our wedding, it wasn't even really a wedding. It was just a very, just our bare bones family. And it was during a power shut off.
Oh.
So I didn't get to curl my hair. There was no food.
No,
it was still really beautiful because the weather was lovely and we got, we went outside and everything, but it was just like, seriously. So we planned it again. We planned to do an actual wedding for our friends and next year. And then, it's COVID. So that.
Oh my God. That's such a bummer. That's such a bummer.
So we're going to be married for like 5 years before we even have a wedding.
Right. Well, if it makes you feel even remotely better, I'm not sure it does, but the day of our wedding we got married in Los Angeles, was supposed to be beautiful outside. And it was like torrential rain to the point where I'd never seen it before in my life. It was so bad that we that morning had to rent a huge tent. And at the end of the party and everyone's leaving the wedding and it was perfect. Everything went aside from that was great. There was so much mud and it was just so rough that in order to not mess up her dress, we were trying to figure out ways to make sure that my wife was, her dress was covered and we couldn't figure anything out. And so our wedding planner was like, oh, I got an idea. And she cut out a hole in like a garbage bag and put it on her. And my wife turned to me just the perfect amount of happy and said, I never imagined as a child that I would be leaving my wedding in a garbage bag.
Wait, was that the year of the big tsunaami in Japan? Was that 10 years ago?
I don't know.
That was 2011. Yeah.
Yes,
so.
It was 2011 when we got married.
Because I was in LA then, and I had a very good friend passed away, and his funeral was during those rains, and it was intense because it was. I mean, the winds were crazy, and the rain was. I had to go buy giant umbrellas for the funeral because it was all outside. So I mean, just the way you described it, I'm like, I wonder if it's the same year because that was a El Nino year or something.
Yeah, it must have been because I mean, as I'm sure you guys can attest, wedding stuff just makes your brain mush. The only thing I remember for sure is that it was 11/11/11. So I can't really remember, forget my wedding anniversary. But to be able to get married on such a special date was a pretty cool thing too. So,
wow, that's amazing.
Thanks.
We're on the 11th, October 11th.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we got an 11 in there. We got one of your 11s.
Well, hey, listen, next time you guys are in LA, you're going to have to let us take you guys out for drinks or something.
We are planning fairly soon, aren't we?
Yeah, we're trying. I've been trying to connect with Matt and Dittman.
I love Mr. Dittman.
Have you seen him lately?
I haven't seen him lately. It's been a while. I guess it's been since I want to say since Drago's passing, I think.
Okay.
So I think that was right at the beginning of COVID. I think it's been that long since I've seen him, but he is just such a source of light. Every time I see that guy, I just, you just want to hug him until it's very uncomfortable.
And he would probably point that out. Go, all right, it's real uncomfortable. I'd like to go down and I'd love to see you, man.
Oh man, that would be you, Mark. You tell me when, and I'll work around whatever.
Yeah, and I can't see you, but I could touch you, and I'm fully vaccinated, so.
So the touching is safe
and genuine at that point. Genuine.
Yeah. So why don't, as Bill O'Reilly says, why don't you play us out with a song?
Brian, that was perfect. Wait, should I jump up and scream, we'll do it live? We'll do it live.
Do it fucking live. Yeah, if you can. That would be.
We Bill, if you're watching, we tease because we don't love. All right. Bill? I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. Again, that's in poor taste. Out of the three of us, am not the comedian, as you can tell.
You're funny. You're funny.
That just means that you're happy inside. That's all that means.
Right. Okay.
See,
so,
as my life has gotten worse and worse, I become funnier. So
right.
that's how that works.
That's how it works.
I think that's called having a positive spin.
The mortuary is a place of great hilarity. People who work in the country are hilarious.
I mean, talk about writing. You could write a comedy about that would just knock people's socks off.
I have like a 5-page list of quotes, just funny things that people said in passing that are amazing.
Well, when we get that drink, I 100% want to hear those.
I'll bring it because it's good.
All right. So here, let me just say before I play this last thing, 2 things. Firstly, thank you for inviting me again. It's such a pleasure. I just think the world of you, Brian. So to be able to finally meet you, Rachel, and see completely why Brian's such a lucky guy. It makes perfect sense. And I hope that we get to celebrate life in person, which would be rad one of these days. So, okay, so I'll say this is the last tune. It's called The Color Blue. It's actually the last song on the record. It's kind of a really quiet tune about it's hard to explain. It's sometimes in art, you feel like you didn't get invited to the party, and it becomes a very competitive ordeal, and that always rubbed me kind of wrong because art's so personal. It's so weird to me to think that there's award shows and things like this where it becomes this competitive flair to something so unique and singular. That's what this song is about. It's just is not wanting to stop for those stupid, silly, cosmetic reasons. Okay, so it's called The Color Blue. I can feel the stinging just behind my eyes. For everyone else, the rules need not apply. Poor unfortunate boy, you'll never be royalty. Honestly, that never meant shit to me. But ladies and gentlemen, please gather round. Let your troubles melt away in the sound. But nothing lasts forever, at least all my friends believe. Make do with what you've got and be set free. Climb up to heaven, it's my turn to take a bow. I'm gonna scream till I am the color blue. Another sound made with no one there to listen. Like a dying wealthy man who has no kin. Just condemn me and my heart down to the gallows. Send that good old boy straight to eternity. But ladies and gentlemen, please gather round. Let the troubles melt away with the sound. That nothing lasts forever, at least all my friends believe. Make do with what you've got and be set free. Climb up to heaven, it's my turn to take a bow. I'm gonna scream until I am the color blue. Silence the crowd below. I'd like to rip all their hearts out. Take me seriously or I'm through. 'Cause nothing lasts forever. At least all my friends agree. Make do with what you've got and be set free. Climb up together. It's my turn to take a bow. I'm gonna scream until I am the color blue. I'm gonna scream until I am the color. Scream until I am the color. I'm gonna scream until I am the color blue. I'm gonna scream until I am the color blue.
Ah, lovely. That was lovely.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you guys so
Yeah.
much for being such good listeners too. Wow, I'm so grateful over Zoom. It must be weird. So thank you so much.
No, it's been wonderful. And Color is the album by Brian Buckley. Everyone, please get it wherever music is available.
Thank you so much, my friend. And you both are just tremendous. And I think it's wonderful that you guys are doing this and communicating with the world this way. Is just so awesome. And I'm honored to be a very small part of it. And anytime you guys ever need, you just reach out, and I'm more than happy to settle any marital arguments over music. I'm honored.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make an appointment because
you are a great mediator. Well done, by the way.
you are. That's true.
But before we completely wrap up, I've been asking these questions, and I'm just curious to know what your answers are. If you could say something to everyone on Earth, every living creature on Earth, and they can understand you, like an omnipotent God voice, what would you say? And they can hear you at the same time.
Forgive, I guess. Forgive each other. That sounds so palpably ridiculous, but for me, it's the only real superpower I think we have. I think love is something sometimes we don't choose, but forgiveness is almost across the board, I think, something that we have to make a decision on. And it's just so hard because we're struck into camps all the time. It's always, us against them, this nation against that, Coke versus Pepsi, whatever. So I think, forgiving each other is maybe the ultimate gift. It's long-winded, but there's your answer.
It's a deeply brave and difficult thing to do.
Right. Yeah. Maybe the most, right? Maybe the most.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you. And what would your epitaph say?
Oh, oh man. It was a valiant effort.
It's a valiant effort.
I'm just kidding.
Well, Rachel, you were saying something simultaneously?
Oh, I said it wasn't my fault.
It wasn't my fault. Right. That's pretty good. No. My epitaph would say, "Don't eat the lumberjack slam all in one go." No. I suppose honestly, I think if I'm to be serious about it, I think I would say, something to the effect of, sounds very old timey, but here lies a man who tried to love as much as he was loved. I don't know. That feels right to me, because I feel pretty lucky.
I would take tries out.
There you go.
That's just a little editing tip.
Yeah, a little writer editing. Yeah.
It
Well,
alliterates better and is probably more honest, because I'm sure that you do already do that.
Oh, thank you.
Don't
I
be
appreciate
surprised.
that. I hope so. These are what I love about these questions are it's kind of like the end of Actor Studio, the James Lipton questions. I love those things. It shows so much insight into somebody, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Bernard Pivot, what's his name? He always brings him up. It was the question of what is your favorite word or something like that.
Right. Which is
Yeah.
what is your favorite word, Brian Snyder?
Weird. My first thought was pussy, but then I don't know why. I don't think that's my favorite word, but that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're honest, which you were.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's my favorite word. It's just the first word that came to my mind. But you know what I did think, because and I think about this a lot because I love Gene Wilder, and he was on the Actor Studio, and when he was asked that same question, he said lovely.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And he's got a very soft, sensitive, lovely way about him. So yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. I like that word, lovely. Yeah.
I remember when who was it? Oh, see, now I can't remember who it was, and the story doesn't mean anything if I can't remember who it was. But those last questions are some of the most fun bits of those interviews, because you're almost caught off guard. I mean, they probably know they're coming, but it's nice to see them have to not have a tailored answer. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I missed those interviews. Those were great insights into some creative minds. Yeah,
I agree.
Well, this has been a lovely conversation and beautiful music. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. We deeply appreciate it. And I miss you, my friend, and love you very much. And please, you and your wife, stay healthy and safe. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to see you soon.
Brother, I miss and love you too. And I would absolutely adore that. Count me in whenever you have the time. And Rachel, I can't wait to give you a vaccinated, masked up giant squeeze for thank you for being such a wonderful light to that wonderful guy we love so much. So you guys just take care of each other as well. And again, just a crazy, wonderful honor to be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, you can get the album Color by Brian Buckley anywhere where music is available. Rachel, did you have anything you wanted to share or say before we close out?
Yeah, you didn't ask me what my favorite word was.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait, hold on. Rachel, it's not Facebook?
It's cacophony.
Cacophony is a great word.
Fantastic word. And I broke up with Facebook on my birthday.
Actually, cacophony is a brilliant word.
It's one of the best.
It's one of the best because it actually what's the terminology where the word spoken gives meaning to the definition or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like how moist would make you feel that way.
It gives it. Yeah, it has a.
I don't know how to
almost a tactile, like
right.
Tactile.
Right.
That's another great word.
Tactile is another great word.
Ephemeral.
But I think you won. I think cacophony is the winner.
That's all I wanted. I just wanted my turn. That's all.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Well, because words are important to me.
Yes, and also
almost as important as Facebook.
See, and we brought that one back.
All the way back. And Brian was hoping that it had gone for good.
Yeah.
No, he loves it.
But there'll be something she'll be upset about tomorrow. I always fuck up. So
Brian, you'll have to text me and let me know what that is, because I think you guys both did.
It'll be on TikTok probably or Facebook.
Well, it'll most likely be publicized. Yeah, that's kind of air our grievances in that manner.
Well, the argument will be publicized.
Listen, it was an honor.
Like the revolution.
It was.
I guess it will not be public. Or what is it? Not be televised. What? All right, everybody. Let's make it real awkward. Brian Buckley, thank you so much, and love the album Color. This was The Blind Man in Black. I'm Brian Snyder with my co-host and wife Rachel Snyder. You can find her latest projects on posyfilledpockets.com, and there's a hyphen in posy filled. Remember that. So posy filled pocket.
And there's going to be a searching for Absalom website any second now. I have the domain. I just have to build it.
Awesome.
I have to build it.
And that
Well,
is
let
her
us
new screenplay.
Awesome.
There's a very active Facebook page, but yeah, I haven't finished the website yet.
And there's brianbuckley.com, right, as well?
BrianBuckleyBand.com and or just Brian Buckley Band on any of the social media sites, with the exception of TikTok.
Okay.
Mm.
So
Cutting edge. TikTok's the cutting edge. You got to get on.
That's true. You're right. It's true.
there we go. So we got all the websites in, and now we are going to have our very awkward ending.